What's up, guys? Welcome back to Hear Me Out. Lots of big quarterback moves in the NFL in the last couple of days. You got Aaron Rodgers signing back with Green Bay, 4-year, $200 million deal. Pretty unreal there. Russell Wilson traded to the Broncos. And then we have the Washington football team trading 2 third-round picks.
Commanders.
The Washington Commanders trading 2 third-round picks, trading back in this year's second round for Carson Wentz, who was just traded from Philly for a first-round pick a year ago. Already being moved.
That hasn't been used yet. A first-round pick that they haven't even used yet.
And Washington just traded draft capital and ate $28 million of their remaining $33 million in salary cap for. Point being, lots to talk about today on Hear Me Out. Let's start with Aaron Rodgers. Josh, give me your thoughts.
So, my thoughts on Aaron Rodgers. I know he's reigning MVP. Whether he should have won it or not, you could have that debate. I know Jesse doesn't agree with that award, but
Jonathan Taylor, all day.
Obviously, if you can have a guy like that back in your building, it's good. It worries me. I know that the cap hit technically went down with this new contract versus his old contract, but still, that is a lot of money each season to give up for one guy. And his biggest complaint has always been them not surrounding him with enough talent. I don't know what makes him think that's going to make it better by giving him $50 million a year instead of maybe taking less to get more talent. If I'm Davante Adams, I'm sitting the season out because there's no way I'm letting them franchise tag me when he's the best receiver in football. Like, he should be making the most, and he's going to get tagged
by far
because their crybaby quarterback has been throwing a fit. So now I think he's getting screwed. He should sit. I think it's Rodgers. Having him back is a good thing. For the next couple seasons, it's a net positive for the Packers. I'd say in 3-4 years, they're really going to be regretting this. My biggest takeaway, though, from the whole thing is what an indictment it is on Jordan Love and how much they don't think that he's the answer. Because there's no way you draft a guy to be your heir apparent at quarterback, let him sit for 3 seasons, and then sign Rodgers to a $200 million 4-year contract at 39. Like, so they've given up on Love, as they should. I don't think he's very good. I think we saw.
So I attended the Kansas City game live this year where Jordan Love made his debut, and I gave up on Jordan Love after watching him in that game. He looked like a high school kid who was thrown into an NFL game. Poor decision making, poor reading. We're not going to talk about Jordan Love, but he is terrible. But talking about Aaron Rodgers, first of all, there's this myth that Aaron Rodgers needs more help or doesn't have help. Yet Aaron Jones and Davante Adams are a duo that any quarterback in the league would kill to have. And the fact that he's not doing everything he can to keep that duo together like Brady did in New England, even though Belichick was a terrible GM, but he always, took the pay cuts. I'm not saying you have to take a pay cut. I'm not saying everyone has to be Dirk. I am saying you don't have to be the top paid player in the league when you've already made hundreds of millions of dollars in the NFL. You have your State Farm deals. You had your Jeopardy money. You have everything. What is the point of making yourself the highest paid player other than a pride thing where you think you deserve to be the highest paid player, which you don't? You're not even a top four quarterback right now, in my opinion. There's no way he deserves to be making more money than Patrick Mahomes. There's no way he deserves to be making more money than Josh Allen. He just doesn't. Not saying he's not better than them all time. I'm saying at this current moment, right now, if you swapped him with those two quarterbacks would do better on the Packers than he would on their teams. And the fact that he is now making half of a 9-figure deal is just, it's mind-blowing to me at age 39. I don't know why they would make this kind of commitment to him at this point. I understand he's been MVP these last 2 years. I also understand the Packers led the league by far in wide receiver separation and route running, also in pocket protection. Also, they have a great running game. So I'm not saying they could replace him with anybody. I'm saying they could have replaced him with Russell Wilson, which would have been cheaper and better in the long run. Segueing to Russell Wilson, Josh, what do you think about Russell Wilson to the Broncos?
So I think that is a huge trade for Denver. They have a really good team. I actually think they have a really good offense. Their defense is still good too, but that is an offense I think any quarterback would be excited to be a part of.
Do you think he's on the decline, Russell Wilson?
Not really, honestly.
100%. 100%.
I agree. I kind of agree with Jacob there. I think he's peaked. I'm not saying he's on a downward trajectory to the end. I think he's peaked.
I don't necessarily think he's going to continue to get any better. I would say plateaued. Yes, I think maybe a slight decline. He's 33 now, so his athleticism is reduced from when he was a 24-year-old. There's no doubt. He can't run around like he used to. But I think his mind is better than it's ever been, and he still throws, in my opinion, the best deep ball in the NFL. When he throws the ball downfield, I don't care where he's throwing it to, it always hits in the breadbasket 10 times out of 10. It's drop-dead gorgeous to see. His accuracy is really good. I think all the other parts of him being a quarterback have only gotten better since he's been in the league. His athleticism, I think, has declined, as you would expect from a 33-year-old man. But I do have a wild concept that I think would help mitigate Russell Wilson's decline in athleticism, which is not make him run for his goddamn life every single time he takes a snap. If you stop making him do that, he doesn't need to be as fast. I don't really feel like he's declining. I think he came back from his finger injury and played really bad for a couple games, but he finished the season really strong. He started the season really strong. I don't think he's declining.
When I say he's declining, or I say he's peaked, I'm saying when I see the Russell Wilson that led them to back-to-back Super Bowl appearances a couple years ago, and then I watch this Russell Wilson that played this last year, it's not the same guy. I think it's very clearly not the same guy.
It's not.
That being said, Russell Wilson he's still in that elite tier of quarterbacks. He's just on the bottom end of it now, whereas he used to be near the top of that elite end of quarterbacks. It's a great move for Denver. I think Denver needed a quarterback. I think they were clearly waiting on Rodgers to make a decision because this trade happened 45 minutes later.
Right.
But as a second choice, Russell Wilson's not a bad second choice. Considering when you look at the quarterbacks out there, you look at who the Commanders went and got. You look at
which we'll get to that.
Blow.
You look at the quarterbacks. You look at the quarterbacks coming up in the draft. I mean, is there any question that Russell Wilson was the best available?
Yeah.
Since Aaron Rodgers was clearly not actually available, he was just putting on a show because he likes to be the center of attention.
Let's break down the Denver Seattle trade real quick.
Yeah,
let's go over the
read
trade
the details to us.
So the Broncos traded 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, a 5th-round pick, Drew Lock, Shelby Harris, and Noah Fant. Let's not act like that's not a massive deal.
Oh, it's a haul. It's a haul. I mean, I think it's a good trade for both. I think both teams came out of this trade with something they can, show their fans.
Seahawks traded Russell Wilson in a 4th-round pick. I definitely think. Well, let me start here. Russell Wilson's best football is behind him. Now, this is the best team Russell Wilson will have been on in quite a while.
Since 2014, probably, yeah.
Probably since that Super Bowl Seattle team he had, where they had a really good team for a couple of years there. This Broncos team is legitimately good. They didn't trade any players that are going to really cripple them. Losing Noah Fant's a pretty big deal.
Noah Fant,
but
yeah.
It's a tight end. I know you go back in time, maybe 5-6 years ago, tight ends were like the most important thing in the world. I don't think it's the same way anymore. There's too many good ones out there. You can get a mid-tier tight end. He's going to be good enough to have a good offense. So this is a really good team Russell Wilson's going to. And I think this works well for Seattle. Obviously, they're going into rebuild mode. They just cut Bobby Wagner, which is pretty crazy. They've got an insane amount of picks. I've heard that they have a really strong interest in Deshaun Watson, which there's a lot of legal whatever going on there. But if that clears and they want to go that route, they would have a quarterback. They would have capital to trade for him. And they're obviously going into rebuild mode. They didn't see a great future with their squad then, and they got a lot in return, and the Broncos got a quarterback, and they're going to be a legit team. The Broncos will absolutely be fighting deep postseason this year in the AFC.
If you had to lose Russell Wilson, I think what they came away with is probably best case scenario. I think. But let me ask you all this. Is Cortland Sutton the best receiver that Russell Wilson has had? I know he had Tyler Lockett. He had some good receivers. I think Cortland Sutton can make a case to be the best receiver that Russell Wilson has had.
I am going to go ahead and answer it in maybe a bit of a different way and make a little bit of a projection and say that Jerry Jeudy is going to be better than Cortland Sutton, including this upcoming season. I think
that's true. That's true. But I'm talking about like at this current moment right now, assuming Jerry Jeudy, he might be better, but like right now on paper, is Cortland Sutton the best receiver he's had?
I don't know that Cortland Sutton has shown me enough to put him there yet, considering Russell. Well, I would say probably Doug Baldwin. Maybe that's kind of crazy to say, but just the longevity and production Baldwin had in that Seattle offense, I think that's probably his best receiver he's ever had.
I think his receiver situation is strikingly similar to what he had in Seattle the past couple of years, with Jeudy and Sutton being a similar combo as Lockett and DK Metcalf were. Maybe I would honestly say Sutton and Judy's probably a little bit better of a duo.
I think they're definitely a better duo than what he had. But Cortland Sutton, I am excited to see what he can do with Russell Wilson, because since he joined the league, he's been being thrown to by absolute scrubs. And he has still been fairly impressive with those scrubs. He had the 1 year where he missed most of the year with the injury. But other than that, when he's on the field, he's been extremely impressive with these scrubs. And I'm excited to see what Russell Wilson can do with that combo, especially Cortland Sutton. Because I think Cortland Sutton, I disagree with Josh. I think Cortland Sutton's going to establish himself as the clear number one.
Oh, SMU fanboy thinks Cortland Sutton's going to be better? Are we shocked? No, I'm kidding. I think Sutton works really well downfield, and I said earlier, I think Russell Wilson throws the best deep ball in the league, whereas Drew Lock was being sued by fans for being struck by his footballs that he was attempting to throw downfield. So I think it's going to be a big jump for them. The AFC West is scary. I do not want to play any of those teams.
And what's interesting about the Russell Wilson trade is Washington Commanders actually offered a larger package. It contained 3 first-round picks, I think multiple seconds, and they even said, if you want a player, tell us who. And Seattle said no.
Do we know why? Why? So, I heard Russell Wilson said no.
So what I understand,
Russell Wilson had veto power.
What I understand is Seattle refused to trade Russell Wilson to the NFC. They didn't want to face. Okay. They didn't want to have him impact their playoff, I guess, run. So they wanted to trade him out of conference. Denver had a good offer.
Okay, because I heard Russell Wilson was the one who said no, because he had veto power over trades.
And he might have. I would not blame him.
But I wasn't sure, because I don't know why you would say, because Washington Commanders, they have a good team, they just can't seem to find a quarterback, which is what we're moving on to next.
What's interesting is the Commanders yesterday offered the Colts a 4th rounder and a 6th rounder for Carson Wentz. It kind of slowed down a little bit. Russell Wilson gets traded, and then the very next day, Washington trades 2 third-rounders. They trade down into the 2nd round this year, and all for Carson Wentz. So they strengthened their offer substantially in response to the Russell Wilson trade deal falling through. And so now we have the situation where Washington Commanders' starting quarterback presumably is Carson Wentz. So I think it's important to talk about the honest battle between Carson Wentz and Taylor Heineke. Taylor Heineke's 2021 QBR was 39.9. Carson Wentz was 54.7. In fact, Teddy Bridgewater's was 47.7, and Russell Wilson was 54.7. So Carson Wentz and Russell Wilson actually had the same QBR in 2021. Carson Wentz's stats: 3,500 yards, 27 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Taylor Heineke's 3,500 yards, 20 interceptions, 20 touchdowns, 15 interceptions.
I was like, Lord.
So I'm not going to be the dramatic Washington fan and saying that Carson Wentz is not an upgrade over Taylor Heineke, because I think that's dishonest. He obviously is a better quarterback than Taylor Heineke.
Let me take that point, though, because I am going to say that he's not an upgrade over Taylor Heineke, and I'm not going to say it just because of on-the-field play, although I think Heineke has a mobile factor over Wentz that does play into it, too. But because of the cost. So if you're going to pay nearly, triple? What does Carson Wentz make over Heineke? Triple, quadruple, maybe?
Taylor Heineke makes $4 million a year.
Oh.
Okay, so
what's
a multiple more. If you're going to pay a multiple more, you need more
more
than slightly better.
So
as an
I was
upgrade.
I was gonna get there because that was my next point.
Yeah.
The on the field play will probably be a little bit better because I stand by what I said. I do think Carson Wentz on the field is a better quarterback than Taylor Heineke.
He is, yeah.
What I don't think Washington did was improve their situation as a team, as an organization. They have no cap anymore. They have $5 million in cap room. They can't sign any more big name free agents. They've shot themselves in the foot in the draft. You know, do you take a guy? You saw what happened the last time the Eagles took a quarterback pretty early on when they had Carson Wentz. He threw a hissy fit and left the team the next year. So you're in a weird spot of, do you draft a guy this year? I know it's not a strong draft class for quarterbacks, but still, are you banking on Carson Wentz for your future? He's not $28 million a year worth. You have no cap room anymore, and now you have less capital in this year's draft. We are in a worse spot than before the draft, even if our quarterback play improves ever so slightly. And so I think that's the most frustrating thing about this, is it feels like a very desperate move by Ron Rivera because he's had no success in Washington so far. He was desperate for a quarterback, and he threw a bunch of crap at the Colts because obviously they're going to take that for their piece of crap Carson Wentz quarterback. And they took it. And so now Washington has no cap space. They can't even re-sign Terry McLaurin this offseason. They have to wait till next offseason unless they want to try to restructure Wentz. But why would he allow that to happen for a team he just got traded to?
No chance. No
and
chance.
So,
Wentz
and so
takes less money.
We're in a so much worse spot than before the trade, even if our quarterback play improves a little bit. I just don't get it. I don't get it.
So I'm going to jump in and, I guess, not counter, but throw this point out there. I don't think the quarterback play even does get any better. I'm going to be honest. Because the number one most pedestrian quarterback in the league was Jimmy Garoppolo. On that 49ers team, he just had to remember to put his jersey on, and he did enough. The 31st quarterback, to me, was Carson Wentz. That team was so good. 90% of what Carson Wentz did was turn around and hand it off to Jonathan Taylor. We've talked about this many times off camera. Jonathan Taylor, every game but one where he cleared 100 yards, they won. Every game he didn't clear 100 yards, they lost. What does that tell you? That means Carson Wentz was doing nothing to help them win.
Nothing.
Zero. Nothing at all. So you pull him out of that offense where he was also throwing to Michael Pittman, T.Y. Hilton, a couple other guys, that crazy Colts offensive line. Even Jonathan Taylor in the passing game was a better receiver than some teams have on the roster. And you put him in Washington. And I'm not saying Washington has a bad roster. I'm not saying there's some dumpster fire of an offense, but they are not the Colts offense. It's not as loaded. The offensive line is not as good. Antonio Gibbs. I really think that if you flip them, if Heineke would have been included in the deal, I think Heineke plays better on the Colts than Wentz did, and I think Wentz plays worse on the Commanders than Taylor Heineke did. I really believe that. For 7 times the money.
So I think Josh has a really good point there, and I also want to raise a point that we should be questioning is why the Colts don't have a young quarterback coming off the bench, right? They don't have a high draft pick. There's no reason for them to be getting rid of Carson Wentz. So if they are out there getting rid of Carson Wentz, who they traded for last year, and still that pick that they traded for him in the first round has not been used yet, clearly that's not an omen that Washington should be looking at and be like, okay, this is a guy who can turn our franchise around. Because the Colts are practically being like, okay, we've had 1 year of this guy. He's absolutely terrible. Let's go for anyone else. I heard rumors, I don't know if they're true, that they're looking at Jared Goff. Jared Goff over Carson Wentz.
I've heard Jimmy Garoppolo. I've heard that
Jimmy Garoppolo too.
Apparently, trade talks have really intensified.
As Josh just said, and I know Josh and I are in agreement. I don't know if Jacob is, but Jimmy Garoppolo is the worst starter in the league, in our opinion.
Yeah.
So if they're looking at that guy over Carson Wentz, Washington should be taking that as a sign to run, not as a sign to up their deal.
I was reading today that the biggest reason the Colts wanted to move on from Wentz was they listed 3 reasons according to inside sources. A, he had absolutely no leadership over the team at all. He was not a leader. 2, he could not handle any kind of hard coaching at all. Anytime he was criticized, he basically threw a fit and shut down, kind of like a child. And his erratic play style, they could not get him to just execute the offense like it was supposed to be called. He would just ad-lib and chunk the ball wherever, and sometimes it's picked, sometimes it wasn't, who knows. So, sorry about that, guys. Technical difficulty. We lost me for a second. I don't know what the last thing I was saying is, but we're just going to move on. Basically, the Colts decided not only is his play on the field poor, but he has a terrible personality to go with it. So they figured, let's just get cheaper and someone who's more fun to play with, who can also be bad. And that was the guy Washington said, that's our answer. That guy right there. It's such a bad move to me in every facet, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so. My final point on this, to wrap myself up here, is, if he finished 2021 with the 9th best QBR, the 3rd fewest interceptions in the league, the 10th most interceptions, and the 18th most yards. Those stats are a lot better than what Washington has had. He's the best quarterback Washington has had since Kirk Cousins. I firmly believe that. And I actually think Kirk Cousins and Carson Wentz fall in a very similar category in terms of how good they are. They're never going to win you a Super Bowl. They may win you a playoff game if you get lucky, but there's no future here. Washington is in a worse situation overall. Even if the quarterback play improves a bit, we're a wild card playoff loss perennially with Carson Wentz, and I don't know if that's anything to be excited about, especially when you destroyed your own cap and your ability to pursue talented free agents.
So to wrap up all quarterbacks we've discussed here, for me, on the Carson Wentz point, those stats, they're not, obviously they look decent on paper. When you factor in what Josh was saying earlier about like the weapons, they had one of the best offensive lines. They have the best player in football in Jonathan Taylor. They have, Pittman. They have all those weapons. Those stats are meaningless to me. And if anything, I'm shocked that they're not better. But only 27 touchdowns seems low for a team that's stacked. But regardless, and I understand that they're a run-first offense, but regardless of that, I think that the Washington Commanders as a whole got worse. Their situation got worse. Their quarterback play specifically, you could argue maybe tweaks a little bit worse, a little bit better. We don't know yet. I think as a whole, the Washington Commanders got worse. I think Ron Rivera is a terrible GM, and I think it's time for him to be gone. I never liked him as a coach in the first place, but as a GM, he's even worse. Aaron Rodgers, I think, is letting his pride get in the way of what's best for the Packers, and I think the Broncos and Seahawks both made good deals that benefit each other. I would also like to point out one quarterback that hasn't been moved yet because he is borderline immovable is Jimmy Garoppolo, because other teams know how terrible he is and how expensive he is, and that's why I'm not shocked that he's the last quarterback to get moved, and 49ers are going to have a hard time moving him.
So, real quick on Jimmy G, he'll definitely be moved, but I think it's going to be one of those things that, like, nobody is really happy about it. Like, it's done, and then everyone's like, well, that sucks. Packers overall net win, it's a crazy deal. I would never give Aaron Rodgers $200 million on 4 years, but he's back. He's the best quarterback in football, in my opinion. It's a net win for the Packers. For the Broncos, they gave up a lot, but I think they're in Super Bowl contention with Russell Wilson. Deep playoffs, if nothing else. That's a win for them. Seattle, I'm counting it as a loss. They got a ton of stuff back. They're clearly ready to punt, but the whole reason they had to move Russell Wilson is they're a terrible organization who pissed Russell Wilson off and made him leave, so that's a net loss. I don't remember the exact thing, but I was reading today, of the 56 players they've drafted since 2014, they've had 2 Pro Bowlers. That's terrible. They're a bad organization, so net loss for them for making Wilson leave. Washington, net loss to me as well. Give up draft capital. I think Carson Wentz is worse than Taylor Heineke, and he's making 7 times the money. Just terrible. And I also want to say that this is all karma coming back at full circle, because if you go to one of our previous videos on the channel, don't remember which one, don't know how far you'll have to scroll. I think it was our NFL predictions video before the season. Jacob said Carson Wentz would return to Pro Bowl form and be a great quarterback, to which me and Jesse said, no, he's garbage. And
I was one season off. It's for this season.
Now Carson Wentz has made his way back to the Commanders to remind Jacob that he should just keep his mouth shut.
The universe is spiting me with this one. Washington screwed themselves. Packers, good on them. It's a big deal. Rodgers is the best quarterback in the NFL. What are you going to do? I don't care what they do, actually. Seattle, they're in rebuild mode. They got a lot of draft picks. That's what you want to do. Russell Wilson's in a better situation. Broncos are a better team. Please draft Malik Willis or something. Commanders, take a shot. I don't know. I don't know what you need to do at this point. Fire Ron Rivera. I don't care. Do something else. Change the name.
Just cheer for a new team.
Change it again.
We're close. We're close. Fire Dan Schneider. Sell the team.
Lord. Yeah. But that's going to do it for us, guys. Thanks for tuning in. I know it's been a while since we posted. It's been a while since we've had our host back. Glad to have him back. And we will see you guys next time.